For a fact, I'm very opposed to the tier list as a concept in specific. Don't tell new players to look at a tier list. Tier lists are not a guide, it's more for the sake of fun meta comparisons. Here are some actual numbers comparing damage dealers of different tiers, and also my own negative experiences, my frustrations with the Masters community. If you're just here for the numbers, then make sure to click on the timeline. I'm pretty sure I'm not alone with those negative feelings after interacting with some parts of the community, and I don't want you to think you've been asking wrong questions either. If you want to know my frustrations I had when I began the game, and also how people in the Discord reacted to some of my questions I asked, then stick around from the beginning. In general, I must honestly say I've grown quite bitter with some people in the Masters community, but the majority are great people in the community who create great resources and tools that I appreciate so much as well. In my first days of playing, I rewrote and got an Uber tier Pikachu. It is extremely strong and carried everything in my first weeks of casual playing. When I first got it, I asked what a good team of starter units I could build around this Pikachu, just like in Genshin or Tower of Fantasy and any other games I've been playing in. In Genshin, you get a great SS tier unit, you click the unit and you get team suggestions, or you type in best teams for character X. For Masters, these resources don't widely exist yet. But in all of these gacha games, it's all about team comms and synergies after all. So there was me after an entire workday, a bit tired and just wondering if anyone could give me at least one team comp. I got told, one team won't be enough. Don't focus on one team. Diversify your roster. Cover all 18 Pokemon types. Understand all your Pokemon. I literally just started the game that day and I was supposed to read through the pool of 40-ish Pokemon I just got when starting fresh? Sure, after an entire workday and no idea of how strong many of these effects really are. The game doesn't even tell you some of these numbers and you don't find an answer on Google for many of these. So I felt completely overwhelmed even though I did have background experience of so many other games. I don't want to imagine how hard it must be for someone who has even less background knowledge than I did. My very honest opinion here, some people don't know what it means to start as a new player into a gacha game that has been running for 4.5 years already. Some people don't remember how limited and scarce resources are at the very start. Some people got loads of Uber tier and S+ tier units from having completed dailies and pulling on banners, even free to play since 2021. Just build every Pokemon to level 120. Not a great investment. In the long run and for late game content, sure, I agree. But I remember starting out, I was bottlenecked on everything. I read about a passive XP farming method with the Lodge expeditions, but even after asking on 3 different days, no one understood my confusion that you actually have to click the screen without any interaction marker, even though everything else in the lodge has an interaction marker. My fear of missing out, my FOMO, was even stronger triggered when every guide said I should definitely focus on events first, with all of them running away from me. These events also being a source of free gems. I did not have the luxury of just building everything to level 120, and without a team of proper strong units, I would have missed a lot of these event rewards. So having released 2 tier list videos by now, I'm also planning and working on an ultimate beginner guide. And because I wanted it to be really good for you, I thought, well, I'll go and ask the veterans what they think, if they would change anything, and here's what I got. E-tier Pokemon have pulled their fair share of weight. Don't tell new players to look at a tier list. Tier lists are not a guide, it's more for the sake of fun meta comparisons. For a fact, I'm very opposed to the tier list as a concept in specific. Combined with a dental procedure which made me look like a Greedent and have enormous headaches for almost 2 weeks, I almost felt like stopping to create videos altogether, even though I had barely started this channel. But I'm very convinced that I wouldn't be alone with this frustration I experience when I ask questions in the community, just getting those standard answers of go and read what your Pokemon does. So how good is a Pokemon on Spark's maximum investment level tier list, even at just 1 of 5 on a free-to-play investment level? To make it a somewhat fair comparison, I picked the units we can compare the easiest, the pure damage dealers. They are supposed to deal damage as their niche or role in the team, and that is exactly what I'm going to measure them by and take units based on Spark's tier list, which I have been referencing to. The numbers are based on level 140, 1 copy, 1 of 5, and assuming they got buffed to +3 crit and +6 special attack by themselves or a fitting support. Let's start with a unit you all know, Blue and Pidgeot you get for free. They are placed at A- tier at maximum investment. Then let's take a C- tier unit that you get from the questline in your first few days, Valerie and Sylveon. And then an Uber tier DPS Steven and Deoxys as comparison. For A- tier 1 of 5 Blue and Pidgeot we get 40k damage on the single target move Air Slash, 39k damage on the AoE move Air Cutter, which hits all 3 enemy Pokemon. After Mega Evolving with the ultimate Sync move, we get about 207k damage per turn single target. So we could note 207k damage on something ranked A- tier, even considering it's only 1 copy, not fully built, as of Spark's tier list assumption. Let's look at a C- tier unit, Valerie and Sylveon. At first glance, the pre-Mega Evolution damage seems even better than A tier Pidgeot. The AoE move Disarming Voice deals 46k damage, which is 6k higher than Blue and Pidgeot. Single target move Draining Kiss also deals about 7k damage more than A tier Blue and Pidgeot. But here's the massive problem. Even at just 1 copy of Blue and Pidgeot we get at the start, Blue and Pidgeot single target after your first sync move gets to 207k. That is about 4 times more than what Sylveon will do. Now let's look at the hyped Uber tier unit that everyone agrees is great with just 1 copy, Steven and Deoxys. Not to mention they give themselves +6 special attack and +3 crit in 1 turn without any supporter. Let's look at the single target damage. With their second move, Steven and Deoxys deal 228k damage. This is 10% more than what Blue and Pidgeot do after Mega Evolving with the Sync move many turns later. This is also about 4 times more what Valerie and Sylveon could do. And looking at the Sync move doesn't make it better. While Valerie and Sylveon sit at 216k against 1 target, Steven and Deoxys get 364k and even hit all 3 enemies with it, being effectively 1.1 million damage in ideal scenarios. Versus 3 targets, that is 5 times more than what Valerie and Sylveon at C- tier could do. Even against just 1 target, it's about 50% more damage. To summarize, this Uber tier unit deals 4 times more damage single target, and with its Sync move, even 5 times more damage assuming 3 targets. Against single target, Blue and Pidgeot keep up pretty well, being only 10% in damage behind in single target to Steven and Deoxys, but Deoxys only needs 1 turn to prepare, not a full Sync move to start dealing that damage. For an actual comparison as of Spark's list, you can pause the video to compare very high investment damage table. Can you beat most content of Pokemon Masters with only free-to-play units? Yes, but slower. If you are patient enough and invest into lower tier Pokemon more, then you don't need tier lists. But you won't be speedrunning to mid to late game core content without smart investments. Even more so, the general community highlights the importance of completing events as quickly as possible, so you get more free resources, so more Pokemon. So why not start the game with a strong Uber tier unit? Why tell players not to look at the tier list? So, are tier lists trash? If you are a whale who just buys every Pokemon at max investment anyway, you don't have resource scarcity, you have resources because you just buy everything. So whales don't need a tier list really. If you are a long-time veteran swimming in time-gated resources, you don't have resource scarcity, you have the resources piled up and solid teams running already, so veterans won't need a tier list really. But if you're just starting out and you're free to play or low to pay player, then yes, using tier lists, investing in a smart way will get you to this mid and late game core content much quicker. You won't miss out on rewards from events and other time-gated content for weeks or months. Free resources are time-gated, limited, scarce, especially at the beginning, and anyone who disagrees with a beginner's resource scarcity either doesn't remember the start, uses the power of their credit card, or finds missing out on events and repeatable rewards for weeks or even months acceptable. In the long run, into mid and late core game, you do end up building most Pokemon, so any investment won't be wasted as such, in the long run. Investing into lower tier Pokemon just delays the time until you could get all the rewards. If you're fine with taking it slowly, and if you're fine with missing out on stuff, then ignore tier lists, just go and have fun with the game. But for me personally, I get the most fun out of investing into the stronger units of a gacha game first. What do you think?